So the mainstream media and the political establishment have discredited themselves at a rate of knots, falling over themselves to try to get Farage on the fact that he's a racist or an Islamophobe or he's a bigot or any of the others tired tropes that they've cried wolf about a million times. And speaking of the way that the political establishment have discredited themselves, on July 4th there is an election, and over at lotuseaters.com we will be the best place to watch this coverage with a rotating cast of guests. And if you fancy supporting us and keeping our lights on and even sending us video chats and questions to respond to on the night, you can sign up for 50% off your first 3 months for a gold tier subscription with the code 0seats. And so you'll be able to get our entire catalogue of live and pre-recorded premium content. It's well worth it. My colleagues Stelios and Carl have also done some fantastic work, so go join us. But on the Farage story, if you're wondering what's happened, well, cast your mind back a week. Remember this? We've got Andrew Parker here. So he's the actor in question. I was very curious. For those who don't remember, Channel 4 did an expose finding a guy who speaks like Ray Winston, saying all sorts of unsavoury things about the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, how we should gun down channel migrants as they're racing up the beaches of Dover, and how we should turn every mosque into a Wetherspoons. Disavow, of course. People the next day, though, found it
I do like Wetherspoons.
I quite like that one. People the next day found his profile on a website called mandy.com, and it turns out that he's an actor with some very strange costumes there because it looks like he's playing Citizen Khan. But it's curious. He says that he himself plays villain and mafia types, which I get offered often. And as you played in a previous segment discussing this, which I think Harry quibbled with, but I don't think was fair, he has a very posh to camera speaking voice and then instantly clicks into a Guy Ritchie stereotype, which very strange. Now, I thought this was curious, and I tweeted this out shortly after someone at Reform let me know that they were on his case with this. What's curious is there's been some updates to that story since. So well done to Antifa Watch, which is at Unmasked Antifa on Twitter. We'll be using some of his tweets as the story develops in this segment, but go and follow him. He's very good for breaking this story initially. Nigel Farage has since detailed on a BBC Question Time, which we'll also get into, and an interview with Trevor Phillips, some of these details. Farage says that when Parker showed up to the Clacton campaign office, he showed up 2 other guys I didn't know in tow, and those guys just turned out to be the undercover Channel 4 filmers. And Parker himself, who was lurking around, said, "I've got a big car, mate," in his fake Cockney accent. "Why don't you jump in here and go with us?" So the 2 Channel 4 filmers happened to get in his car.
Really?
And 2 other Reform candidates. And as soon as they shut the doors on the car and took off, Parker started saying all sorts of inflammatory things, seemingly trying to draw the other canvassers into saying something inflammatory. Now, there's a reason that footage wasn't included, because they didn't say anything. Because it didn't work. So the only footage they could get is of Parker. How very strange. So uses his rough speaking voice the whole time, and for some reason decided to leave up his account thinking that no one would notice.
He has acting experience where he says theatre in many films. He went to the road, additional skills, plays guitar, has a full car and motorcycle license. Yeah.
But the thing I think that's interesting is paid up equity member. Oh, really?
Why haven't they thrown him out yet for his abhorrent racism?
That's the question. If he's so damn racist, why have the media not plastered his life story across the pages of the paper? This is the racist from Reform. And also, why have Equity not kicked him out?
Why did it take grassroots Antifa Watch Twitter account to investigate this rather than hope not hate?
Well, I tweeted this out. I was like, look, the only person we're hearing about this guy from is Nigel Farage himself. Why is the media not all over this guy? Yeah. Why isn't he being cancelled? Yeah,
they're obsessed with doxing raw egg nationalist for some spicy memes, but not a guy who wishes death on channel migrants. Very curious, isn't it?
The fact that this guy has paid no public price for his racism implies to me that this was a setup.
Yes. Well, this is what Reform are now alleging. So Reform believes that the production team may have done something untoward in securing the footage and then selling it onto Channel 4 and possibly didn't disclose the fact that they knew Parker was an actor when he was involved when they sold it to Channel 4. Reform are considering legal action against Channel 4. They filed a complaint, according to reporting from The Independent and the like. I couldn't find whether or not that was to Ofcom or the Electoral Commission, but that will come out in due course. And Channel 4 themselves have denied any involvement. And so did Andrew Parker. But Andrew Parker, curiously, said to Charlie Peters of GB News, this is a ridiculous conspiracy theory, etc., etc., and then lied about being an actor to the Telegraph. And then people found his acting page and they were like, why did you lie? And then curiously, his acting page is gone.
Oh, really?
It's on archive.
That's fascinating. Why would they take his acting page down?
I suppose it's just such a convincing portrayal of a racist that he doesn't even need to market himself anymore. His inbox must just be full of playing the villain in Nigel Farage-inspired dramas.
Is this him being cancelled from the acting career that he enjoyed?
Possibly, but he hasn't put out a statement about that yet.
I think so, wouldn't you?
Very, very
Do you think
curious.
Equity would put out a statement saying, yes, we've removed him. We're not going to have truck with racists.
Yeah, don't worry though. If you're looking to hire him, he does have a profile on another website, as Isabel Oakshott has found, where he curiously lists secret filming among his skills.
Oh, really?
There you go. How
Really? That's
weird.
That's weird, because that's exactly what he did with the Reform campaign. That's shocking.
Yes. Also, much has been made of the fact he did once work for Channel 4. Of course, if he's just taking gig work, that doesn't mean Channel 4 had any knowledge of him.
But also ITV there as well.
Yes, so seemingly an establishment creature who has worked for a long time in the space, and nobody has complained about his racism if he's that candid when the cameras are off, or at least he thinks they're off.
I think he'd be a racist all the time.
Yeah.
And I heard also he specialized in something sort like rough talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the contrast between him being very posh and well-spoken, saying, my name is Andrew Parker, I've been in lots of films, to going, oh, we should throw these people out the pub, mate. I mean, it's absurd. Nobody's buying it. He just happens to show up to the Clacton constituency doing his rough speaking voice, which, if anything, is very patronising to the people living in the area of Clacton. I don't know why you'd feel the need to lie when canvassing for a candidate you actually believe in. Also, funny thing about memory holding his content, he has a TikTok account.
Oh, really?
And I went to go and find some of the videos, because there are screenshots floating around about him doing lots of direct-to-camera videos.
That's gone too.
They're all gone except for one video posted last week saying we need Nigel as Reform PM, when Nigel is warning about Vladimir Putin possibly invading Ukraine because of aggression. Yeah. So the one mainstream narrative attack against Nigel is still left up.
He's reinforcing it.
But none of his direct-to-camera videos are still there. And Nigel himself said they've seen them and saved them, and he calls him a modern-day Alf Garnett. So they're caricaturish and, let's say, offensive to people of non-white extraction. Curiously, they're all gone, but the one video that might redirect some smear against Nigel is still up on his account. Very weird. Now, look, we don't know whether or not he has been paid to say any of this. We don't know whether or not him being an actual actor implicates the production company more than it implicates himself, but clearly there are questions here, and they'll be asked in due course. But the fact that Channel 4 dove on this grenade without vetting it in the first place shows just how desperate they are to try to smear Farage. And the establishment have all fallen in line accordingly, because in the UK, as I think New York Post endorsed Trump at the last election cycle, we get media channels that come out and endorse candidates. And so the papers have started making their endorsements. Let's look at the series of papers whose readers often vote Reform, but they seem to have fallen in line behind the Uniparty. First example, Daily Mail. So let's look at what the Daily Mail have said. So the Daily Mail have supported the Tories.
Sorry, just a quick thing. Isn't that as bad as a condemnation? Like, oh no, the Daily Mail are supporting the Tories. The Tories are like, guys, just shut up. You know, we don't want to support the Daily Mail. God, sorry, for anyone outside of the UK, the Daily Mail is not a very well thought of newspaper. Sorry.
Well, especially after throwing Dan Wootton under the bus for doing literally nothing wrong.
Throw literally everyone under the bus.
Except, weirdly, Nadine Dorries, who wrote a pro-Tory article recently, despite releasing the plot, which accuses the Tory party of doing, and I'll be careful saying this, some sordid and potentially illegal things.
But it's nice to see the Daily Mail finally nailing its colours to the Tory mast, right? As in, yeah, we're actually just what the conservative, just like the Telegraph. The Telegraph is famous for being the Tory graph, but the Daily Mail is finally like, yeah, no, we're just for the Tories.
Well, what's really weird with this article is they've got a picture of Starmer right at the top. Notice something about this? Why have they chosen a photo of Starmer essentially LARPing as a Hindu?
On a visit to India or something,
when they're endorsing the actual sitting Hindu Prime Minister?
That's a great question.
As if it's like, oh, you don't want to vote Keir Starmer, he pretends to be foreign. Meanwhile, vote for Rishi Sunak. It's weird framing by the Daily Mail. It's just like, I wouldn't have thought to do that, but there you go. So anyway, they write on Farage.
Well, that picture of the picture of okay, yeah, it's a guy visiting India. Okay, like that's that doesn't make him look bad.
It makes him look slightly awkward.
Yeah.
But then
it's kind of endearing, to be honest, which is annoying.
I wouldn't say that, but I think for
a regular person's perspective, that could look kind of sweet.
But if you're trying to persuade someone to vote for a British Indian Prime Minister and then you're but Keir Starmer's pretending to be Indian, it's like...
so weird.
Odd. But anyway, so they talk about to their readers who might be inclined to vote Reform over Tory because the Tories have betrayed you for 14 years, they say, let's face facts. No other party can hope to govern or indeed have the slightest impact on the nation's fortunes over the next parliament. This is a two-horse race between the Lib Dems and Labour. So voters must not only decide who they want to see in power, but also who they don't. Disillusioned Tories may wish to punish their party for its manifest failings of recent years. But the Mail's advice to anyone to vote Reform, tempted to vote Reform, is simple. Don't. This disgusting outburst by one of its people calling Mr Sunak an effing P-word, which I cannot repeat, again, the actor said this, is the latest evidence that this Potemkin party is not fit for purpose. Nigel Farage may have the common touch, but he revealed himself to be a Putin stooge. I think that's defamatory, personally. Aside from him, the party offers little more than bile, invective, and white noise.
What? You're the Daily Mail?
Yes.
Would you... What is wrong with you? The Daily Mail is the most schizophrenic paper in the country, I swear to God. At least the other papers know what they stand for.
Well, yeah, if they want to promote social conservatism, but they actively had the sidebar of shame of some Love Island tart with her breasts out, it doesn't really... Yeah. Did you see the Eddie Izzard article the other day?
Oh, where they called her. They called
with amazing legs as they get on a bicycle.
And they do like pro Lizzo ones as well. Lizzo looking amazing in a bikini. It's like, what the hell's wrong?
Stelios writing for the Daily Mail.
No, I also wrote. I didn't write. I read the one about Nicole Scherzinger.
Of course you did. Stop gooning. Now's not the time.
I have no idea who that is. But anyway.
So they did a sort of tactical voting article on which Tory candidates to vote for. My advice is don't for most of them. Yeah, absolutely. So on with the next ones. The Sunday Mirror decided to endorse Labour, because of course they did. Yeah, the most painful headlines I've ever read. Be on the right side of history this time, vote Labour.
Thank God.
Thank you, liberal establishment.
The Sunday Mirror is basically a low-class communist paper.
Yes. Yeah. Painfully lame. Interesting, the Times have endorsed Labour. The mouthpiece of the One Nation Tories, which obviously there's barely a cigarette paper between their actual policy. They have expressed support for Starmer's stances on Ukraine and Israel, because of course they have, because they're neocons. They have concern on his stance about taxes and illegal migrants, though notably not legal, which is why they published William Hague's This is the Age of Migration article. And so they say, these sizable caveats notwithstanding, so these fundamental value conflicts, just ignore them, we cannot go on as we are, and we believe now is the right time for Labour to be entrusted with restoring competence to government. Because
Keir Starmer is going to continue the managerial globalist Blairite paradigm. And that's the paper of the elite of the managerial globalist Blairite paradigm.
And this is what is really weird about the Labour rhetoric in this election, because basically they are saying that Conservatives, as they say, they have forfeited the right to govern.
Yeah.
So give us power to do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they think that this particular manager of the regional branch of the global managerial brand has forfeited the right to govern, but not the brand itself.
Yeah, correct.
And so they just want to swap out Rishi Sunak for Keir Starmer. The interesting thing is, I should have brought this up actually, but on the train here, I read a Guido Fawkes article where they uncovered Rishi Sunak's magazine article in 1997.
Endorsing Tony Blair.
Yeah. So again, just the door revolves, doesn't it?
It's just all Blairism forever.
Yep. Also, the Financial Times have endorsed Labour because, as David Starkey recently put in a meeting I was in, the Labour Party are now the parliamentary political wing of the global managerial class.
Yeah, and that's because the Tory party has collapsed.
Yes, quite. Yeah. Again, they think they've repudiated this particular guy, not the actual order. So all of the papers are against them. We've now got multiple broadcasting channels against them. TikTok, yesterday, midway through their conference, their sort of rallying event, decided to shut down the live stream when Anne Widdecombe said there are only two genders. Tice obviously said that this is an outrageous biased attack on a major political party because we pointed out there are only two genders. Yes, obviously. Yeah. They're always going to attack you. Stop trying to play by their rulebook. They'd sooner see you dead than victorious. Just remember that. And speaking of that, we have the BBC. Now, Nigel Farage is boycotting the BBC because of this question time. Did either of you watch this?
I did watch it.
Okay, so...
First question, Nigel Farage, why are you a big racist?
Yeah, well, I decided...
Second question, Nigel Farage, you are a big racist, though. Third question, Mr. Farage, on your racism... So, oh, God.
I decided to spoil my Sunday morning by making a short compilation of some of these questions. We'll watch some of them just to ensure that the audience have context for...
I'm really not joking.
Just how dreadfully biased this thing is.
As I said to Adrian, Nigel, I'll just remind you that you're here to answer the questions from the audience. You know, I will not interrupt you. That's my aim, unless, obviously, you stray off the point or, in fact, the question isn't answered. So let's start with our first question tonight, which is from Mark Corden.
Hello. I'd like to know, what is it about you and your party that attracts racists and extremists, whether you say you want them or not?
Well, I've done more.
Well, I mean, that's one example from today, but what about the multiple examples from throughout your career? I mean, I'm asking about everybody who said things about shooting people coming across.
Can we stop?
No.
We
No,
know
sorry.
where this goes. It's all just.
We need the third one. Trust me. Because do you know who these people are?
They are handpicked by the BBC because they work for the BBC. Is that correct?
Some of them are, yeah.
That
Yep,
was what
we'll
that
go through
man
it.
said yesterday.
Let's talk about your record. You've very clearly wanted to distance yourself from this man, Andrew Parker. We've all heard that.
Anyone.
Anyone. Let's talk about some of your candidates. So, I've thought long and hard about this. The kind of language that is ascribed to them, that is reported as having been said by them, is not the kind of language I would ever use. But also, we know what we're talking about, and forgive me if I offend you at home, I'm going to repeat some of it.
I won't interrupt, I'll be
Leslie
non-biased.
Lilly, candidate for
Appalling.
Southend, Eastern Rochford, who said...
a whole...
Apologise
So-
to those offended by that. These are your candidates. Why are they still your candidates?
Yeah, I mean, I know some of my friends, they have start-up companies, but none of them employ a whole slew of massive racists like you. So
So, reason I went through those ones specifically, I mean, they just kept going on and on and on. I've put them all together. It's about 7 minutes of the same question being asked. And Fiona Bruce, of course, is not impartial. There is no such thing as a neutral institution. They're just cloaking their insane establishment left-wing bias behind the pretense of offending polite sensibilities. But
And these people have zero problem with his opponent in Clacton, who says that his favorite drink is drinking white man's tears.
yes, and they were much softer on the Green Party candidate who'd just shown up half an hour before when 20 different Green Party candidates had made remarks such as, we should sink Royal Navy vessels, and were in support of various anti-Semitic things. So, again, only cuts one way. The reason I bring this up, though, is because we've done some digging, as has Antifa Watch, and found out exactly who these plants are in Question Time's audience. So remember, never impartial. The first bloke is a BBC director and who's worked on Doctor Who.
Amazing. Amazing. Oh, it was just a coincidence, guys. We were just doing a random sample of the public, and it just happened to be a BBC director who got the first question. What are the odds?
Yeah, sat next to
100%, but
sat,
what are the odds?
sat next to his missus, who's an actress.
Amazing.
Yeah, quite.
Just
Yep.
coincidence.
Now, if you think this was obviously a pure accident,
It's so shameful.
one, they pre-screen all the questions,
Yeah.
so you have to write them down before and then they select it. And two, then the bloke went on his Facebook profile, making his profile photo a screenshot of him on Question Time, boasting about the fact that not only did I get to glare at Farage, but I was called on to ask the first question, and since made the BBC and ITV News reports too. These people are just midwit narcissists, all of them.
This is total virtue signaling.
Yeah, and they're provided a platform to essentially shape public opinion, despite the not credible
Unrepresentative nature of their views.
that, and also the not credible smears leveled at Farage because the bloke who said all these things is an actor.
Yeah.
So clear election
I
manipulation.
mean, Mark Corden may well know him
Yes.
as a director. Maybe, has Mark ever directed anything the guy's appeared in? That would be an interesting question.
We don't know,
to dig up,
but
wouldn't it?
clearly he has a very prosperous acting career. So who knows? Couldn't allege anything. The other bloke,
I don't know.
the other bloke who said, "I don't employ massive racists like you." Again, I'm sure he's an impartial guy, except for the fact that he's a notable Palestinian and migrants activist. This man is called Salman Mirza. He's formerly British Army, 1986 to 1989, then became a trade unionist, and now represents migrants and refugees in legal cases involving their citizenship, according to a Birmingham Live piece that is screenshotted in this thread. This is a sort of profile on him. So I did some other reading about it. And it's curious because the BBC actually knows who he is because they did a puff piece on him. In 2021.
Really?
So he organised an anti-homophobia rally in 2021 in Birmingham because a couple of people were attacked walking home from a nightclub. Obviously, nobody should be attacked just because they're gay.
Yeah, obviously.
Terrible. Though, considering this man is very pro-migrant and very pro-Muslim states per Palestine, you'd think that he might analyse whether or not his politics are the type of ones that are endangering these people that he's coming out to represent. Because the person attacked in question was John Paul Kessler. And he was attacked walking home through Birmingham's gay village on the 10th of October. Now, the perpetrator must be one of those horrible reform supporters, right?
No doubt.
Well, the BBC reports that it's Usman Mirza, 29, from Tipton.
Really?
And he was charged with two counts of assault and possessing an offensive weapon.
Amazing.
Bit awkward. Yeah, so Mr. Mirza's politics are the ones endangering gay people here, not Nigel Farage's. But anyway, also something...
Just a quick thing as well. This is all such obvious... I don't even know what to call it. Just a preposterous charade. Nobody thinks that Nigel Farage supporters are going to be a danger to anyone. They're a bunch of, white English boomers.
Yes.
Sorry, nobody thinks they're a danger to anyone. It's just pathetic that we're even having this discussion.
They're biscuit tin nationalists, not the BNP. I mean,
obvious Churchill fanboys.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
That's it.
Who isn't a Churchill fanboy is actually Mr. Mirza.
Oh, really?
Because,
what a shock.
And this needs to be maybe looked into, because he actually was planning to be a representative for a rival political party.
Oh, really?
And that wasn't disclosed when he decided to get given a question. So he wanted to found the Never Forget Gaza party.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this describes him as a politician, and he gave a statement to the article, so I assume he doesn't resent the characterization of this.
This is only at the end of last year.
24th of November 2023. Very curious. So I won't read his statement.
And very Anglo-centric.
Yeah,
Directly concerned with what happens in England.
Average British patriot.
Yes. Stand against Shabina Mahood. Oh, God.
Yes. Again, sectarian politics that Farage warned about. What's most curious, though, so I couldn't find whether or not he's running. I don't think he is. But that makes it even more strange, because there is a Twitter account related with it where there's footage of him speaking at rallies last year saying never forget Gaza. And then linked in the bio of this Twitter account, there is a GoFundMe page. And it's raised £2,000. And it says, if I just click on read more here, it actually says that the amount that they need to start up the party. And they say we need £150 to register, £500 to register to stand the general election, and £1,000 for the campaign.
Right, so they made it.
They made it. So why isn't he standing? Where's that money gone?
Well, that's a great question, but I mean, why isn't he standing?
Yeah, curious. How strange. So,
has anyone checked the electoral rolls? Maybe he is standing.
Well, so we had a look, and we can't find him standing. Right. So if he is standing, then the BBC have actually broken Ofcom guidance on election reporting, because you shouldn't platform rival candidates without disclosing that. If he isn't standing, where's the money gone? Yeah. Because this is clearly a startup that he wanted to start, and he may not have employed a bunch of massive racists, despite back in Palestine.
Sure, they're totally not.
But he seems to have employed some people that aren't too good on finances. Or perhaps he just forgot Gaza after all. Oops. There we go. Now, this isn't the only time that this has happened. The BBC also, in a prior question time, I think this was the 7 Leaders debate one, had a man in the audience that kept cutting to shake his head whenever Farage spoke.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, do you know his name? Well, no. Will Plant. You can't make it up. Will Plant. Yeah.
What are the odds? Works for the council. Oh, really?
Digital inclusion lead. He's a DEI activist.
Oh, what a show. God, the odds. The odds.
These people are paid also, by the way.
We took a random sampling of the UK public, and it just happened to be a BBC director, a Palestine activist, and someone who works for a local council.
Yeah, it turns out when Reform's polling 20%, but there's not a single Reform question posed by the audience, might be something funny here.
A fifth of that audience should have been Farage supporters.
Yes, and bear in mind, they spent 30 grand on the Sunak-Starmer question time leader debate for time lost and travel income. So all these people have been paid to be there. So they're just funneling money to their mates, funneling license fee payer money, by the way, which you're forced to do if you're in the UK and you want a live television. But anyway, so I'll just wrap up on the last few bits. It gets worse. So this is an escalation. Now there are fake Reform concessions by Conservative candidates.
Oh, yeah. What happened here?
So this is Jake Berry, Sir Jake Berry. And this is a chap named Nick Harris. Now, Nick Harris was involved in Reform UK and was expelled for reasons that haven't been released, so I won't speculate as to what. He's apparently now working with the Conservatives to write letters saying vote Reform, get Labour, with Reform's colours and not really any Conservative branding. So it looks like a concession by the Reform candidate.
You wouldn't know this was sent by Conservatives.
Exactly. So that's very dubious. And I think the Electoral Commission, if they were fair and impartial, should be taking a look at that. But there you go. And then the other really dodgy thing is there are now accusations that they're bribing candidates coming directly from Isabel Oakeshott and Richard Tice, because a Reform candidate supposedly defected to the Tories.
Why would you do that?
Well.
I mean, like there's a reason that how many Conservative MPs are just not contesting their seats in this election?
Above 60.
Yeah,
and there's
it's
also
like 75 or something.
Multiple ones have been expelled from the party for sex scandals and watching pornography in the Commons and financial abuse.
But it's not people who are nobodies either. Like Michael Gove is just like, no, we're not going to win.
Ben Wallace.
Yeah. But they know they're going to get absolutely trashed. And so you're like, yeah, you know what I need to do? Defect to the Tories. This is my time.
There might be a deal cut here. This is the suggestion. So this is Liam Booth Isherwood. No, haven't heard of him either. Who's standing in Earwash, and they said that there was a significant moral issue in light of the recent Channel 4 expose. Again, actor. and reports of widespread racism and sexism, so he's endorsed the Conservative candidate in the seat. Well, Richard Tice has come out and said...
Dem candidate.
Well, yeah, he's pinned his colours to the mast here, Richard Tice, and he says, Tory candidates, probably involving CCHQ, that's his accusation, not mine, are offering jobs and inducements to reform candidates to persuade them to talk badly of reform, stand down and then endorse the Tory candidate. Today, a senior Tory former MP offered the candidate in her constituency a job as part of her team if she spoke badly of reform and resigned and endorsed the Tories. She has apparently secretly recorded the conversation and given it to the press, so that will be shared soon. So there's some damning evidence of that. Also, a reform candidate making false allegations against the party in Earwash, this candidate that we've just said, and he's saying, what was he offered? He needs to answer a question about that. And then there was also a reform candidate withdrew his nomination papers from a council on the 7th of June, minutes before nominations close, and then endorsing the Tory Gavin Williamson, Sir Gavin Williamson, who must know where the bodies are buried because he keeps being thrown out of cabinet and then given jobs and a knighthood. Very, very shady. And also apparently their Dudley candidate, Reform's Dudley candidate, rejected an offer of a safe seat, council seat, from the local Tories if he withdrew too. There seems to be some chicanery here, trying to bribe people to stand down to give the Tories a vote share that I don't think they would have had otherwise, because people just hate the Conservatives and probably weren't going to vote. And so if all else fails, if they can't sabotage them with Channel 4, with the BBC, with possibly CCHQ, allegations pending, blame Russia. Because, of course, it's the absolute idiot's attack. This is Oliver Dowden, Deputy Prime Minister, who's saying, Russian bots, there are 5 pages working on behalf of Putin, boosting reform, and that's why they're absolutely trouncing us in the social media game.
It's an obvious cope.
Yeah. Painful and pathetic. So I'm going to finish on one final clip, and this is how reform should deal with it, and I just quite enjoy this. So Beth Rigby decided to ambush Nigel at the rally yesterday, and she kept asking about Putin and about all his candidates and that. And then she got onto the topic of Andrew Tate, who, again, I find objectionable. This is how Farage dealt with it, and this is the level of absurdity that they've gotten to at this point.
There's another person I wanted to talk to you about, and that was Andrew Tate. What do you think of him? You described him as an important voice for men a couple of months ago.
He really is massive. Huge voice for men. Doesn't mean I agree with him in any way at all. Doesn't mean that I'm not horrified by seeing some of the charges and the extradition that's probably going to happen.
Do you think he's an important voice?
For young men, not for me.
You just said
Why
that.
do you think he's got the massive following he's got? What do you think's going on here? I talk honestly. I don't support him in any way at all, but I can see for many young men he is important.
You're aware he's been charged with sexual
I'm
assault
aware
and
of all
people
of this.
trafficking in
All right,
Romania.
look, this is the nonsense
Does that
of media.
change your
I tell you what.
about him?
I tell you what. Let's execute him. You happy? This is the nonsense that we've got. Nobody can talk objectively, sensibly about anything. Andrew Tate is very important to a huge number of young men. Now that should worry you. That should worry you.
Does it worry you?
It's all right,
Of course
we're going
it
to
does.
execute
Do you
him, apparently.
disavow him then, Nigel?
I've just done it twice.
Yes, so
What do you
so
want,
you
three
think-
times?
so you
Three
think-
times and the cockerel
No,
crowed
this
in a
is
biblical way.
important.
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
It's a circus. And so we should just brush off all this stuff at this point, because they're always going to hate you. They're always going to call you racist, and they'll stop at nothing to sabotage what seems to be a genuine grassroots movement to represent the dispossessed white working class.
Genuinely shocked that they didn't run with headlines. Nigel Farage calls for the execution of Andrew Tate. Genuinely, that amazes me.
It's hemorrhaging Muslim votes.
Hi folks, thanks for watching. Because this election is going to be such a momentous one, where the Conservatives are going to get absolutely crushed, we are doing an all-night election stream on Rumble on the 4th of July, starting 7 p.m. British time. We're going to have tons of guests, we're going to have tons of fun, and you can come and sign up to lotuseast.com using promo code 0seats and get 50% off the gold tier for 3 months, and send us video comments and chats throughout the night, because we're going to want to hear your input. And to mark this momentous occasion, you can get your 0 Seats merch from our store.